Welcome to the Better Learning Podcast. I am your host, Carla Cummins, and I'm flying solo today, hosting duties, but I'm joined by our fabulous guests, Erin Jennings. We're diving into the iconic sequel of High School Musical 2, the movie that gave us more drama and more dancing, and the unforgettable anthem of Bring It, or Bet on It, not Bring It On. That was a different movie.
That was the other one. Yeah.
Although I think we could probably do that one too at the same
There are a
time.
lot of similarities between the two. Yeah.
There kind of are. And I thought this one too had similarities to Dirty Dancing, like a more modern take on
totally
Dirty
does.
Dancing.
Yes.
But that was just like my last minute thought as I was watching it this afternoon. So, Erin, you are a principal with Luminat, right?
I am.
Where are y'all from?
Indianapolis. Well, we have studios in Indianapolis and Cincinnati, but I'm based in Indianapolis.
Okay. One of my favorite restaurants is in Bloomington there.
What restaurant?
Oh my gosh, it's a steakhouse. It starts with an E.
St. Elmo's?
Yes, St. Elmo's.
Yes.
I almost said Eloy's, but that's a city in Arizona.
St. Elmo's.
St. Elmo's. It's a good, their dessert is always so good. Their pie is one of my favorite.
It's so good.
Yeah. So you do K through 12, right?
Mm-hmm. I do.
Solely focused in Indianapolis or all throughout Indiana?
Mainly the Midwest region right now. So I'm the practice leader for all of our educational environments. So that includes pre-K-12, colleges and universities, and public and academic libraries. And our focus in those practice areas right now are just in the Midwest region, primarily Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky is where our focus is.
Kentucky. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have expected that one.
Yep. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, so when we're looking at High School Musical 2, I just told you I had the privilege of doing High School Musical 1, a podcast on it, and had my daughter come on. But what made you pick this one as the top runner?
Because secretly, I feel like if we could live our actual life in a musical, I would. I totally am. I am like a musical theater connoisseur. And all throughout grade school, was very, very involved in performing arts. It was a big part of my upbringing. And we talked a little bit about the dance background. So that's the world that I come from as well. And when I saw the list of movies that you were considering talking about for the podcast, I thought, okay, High School Musical. You know, there's a lot of relatability with what happens in both of the musicals and, you know, the correlation to what some of the challenges are in today's time. So that coupled with the fact that, you know, why not make life an actual musical theater production? It'd be so fun.
Do you know what? Right? I agree with that because you're always happier. But I love them anyways. Like I love all the Broadway shows. My kids are like, oh, all of it. Another play.
Yes.
And I'm like, yay, let's go.
Yes. Here for it all. Yes.
Oh, they're not, but no. I definitely drag them along with me or anyone who's willing to. But I also love musicals in general because I just do think that it brings like a different element to the story. And think about Moulin Rouge, or we just talked today we did Matilda.
Yep.
Too. And Matilda had a musical. So, and I asked, you know, did you watch the musical? And she was just like, no, it would ruin the book. And I thought, what? It would never ruin the original movie.
There's a different emotional connection that happens during those experiences. And I think you start breaking down the performing arts and the connectivity to the performing arts and then how we feel in the built environment. And there's a lot of correlation to experience, space, and place and how a lot of those live performances are executed. And actually, that was one of the parallels that I studied in my thesis work in grad school. Okay. So, yeah, I think that I think that's why I love this topic and was really excited to dive in to just, you know, understanding a little bit more about how we could unpack it from a conversational standpoint. So.
Yeah, well, you know, we go through a whole series of questions and how it connects back. And I mean, ideally, right, a movie can always connect back to schools, to relationships, to environment. What does that look like? This one isn't, though, based in school. It's based during the summer.
Right.
In Lava Springs, which I didn't get to Google it yet, but I swear on my geographical telescope that it was probably recorded in Arizona because it just looks so much like mountain ranges here. But so Troy's navigates privilege, ambition, loyalty, and relationships that are tested, right? Because his relationship with Sharpay is tested against, you know, is he going to get to go to college? Is she setting him up? What is that happening? So in reflecting on real life, like, does this hold up? Is it relatable, you know, as you go into life as a teen navigating that social divide, and then two, like teen self-awareness.
It's so true. And I think, when you start to look at the fact that it was all Sharpay and Ryan ever knew, right? Because it was their family's country club that they like, this is where they spent their summers, this is where they grew up. And to them, that lifestyle was the norm. And so I think, then when Troy gets the job and he has other aspirations, and there's sort of these underlying kind of, I don't know if you call them agreements, or, he wanted to bring the rest of the crew along with him. The stipulations that he kind of set, that, he wanted to bring the rest of the crew to be able to spend the summer together, because they wanted to see each other outside of school. And so for a lot of those kids, that entire experience was the first time kind of being immersed in that type of environment. And so automatically out of the gate, there was a disconnect between Sharpay and Ryan and their family and the kids that were working there for the summer. And I think that really tees up the entire kind of premise of what that experience, kind of how it unfolded for them. And it's not any different than what I think a lot of our younger generations are navigating right now, and trying to figure out like sense of place and identity and belonging and where they feel welcomed. And so when was that movie filmed? That was one thing I didn't look up. Do you know?
No, I looked back at it. So it was released in 2007.
2007. So we think now, it's almost 20 years ago. And I think some of these kind of identifiers or topics that they were able to bring forth in the movie almost 20 years ago are so prevalent in today's time, right? We haven't quite solved it yet. So I think that's telling and interesting kind of data as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Kevin always looks up the IMDb, which I didn't do. I probably should have. But I mean, I'm just kind of like, I love a little bit of Zac Efron still, to this day. But
Yep.
early Zac Efron, not like new Zac Efron. I think he looks strange now. But, like,
we could say that with a lot of like the Britney Spears days. Like I love Britney Spears, right? And like she's still like Britney Spears, she's still like doing her thing and like making her mark and making her own, right? It's the same. But the earlier Britney Spears days were like the epic Britney Spears days.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was before all of the other things.
Right.
Well, when
That's
we
right.
look at it, right, we look at it from the standpoint of like schools and like we go by awards categories, and I think anyone who listens to the podcast knows kind of the format. But going back to the element of school, like, is there in this story a best mentor? So we call it the John Keating Award.
Yeah, the best mentor. It's so, when you talk about like from a peer mentorship standpoint, when it's so heavily focused on kind of their particular cohort, and how each of them kind of influences one another. The one that I gravitate the most towards is the one that plays, who's always the piano player? Is it Kelsey? I think it's Kelsey.
Yeah,
I think her name is
Kelsey.
Kelsey. And she has this way of being able to relate to the rest of them and connect with the rest of them, that builds trust and camaraderie and synergy between all of them, right? But she's not like really a leading role, and she's not maybe even an identified like high influencer, and she doesn't draw a lot of attention to herself, but she's strong naturally in kind of that mentorship role. So that's who I think about when we talk about that award.
So I didn't do peer to peer at all, but I can see that. And I think the other thing too about her, which I recognized in this episode or this one, as well as the last movie, is she sees the genuine, authentic aspect of a person's capability. So like she sees people. And I don't know how to phrase it other than that, because at the end of the day, we all just want to be seen for who we are and what our capabilities are, and for those to be recognized. But I chose, honestly, Miss Darvis, because I do think that she's that one that goes through, and she's weird and she's quirky. And, even in the beginning, everyone's like, tell me this story. And they're all trying to get her to just do a Mrs. Darvis. I don't know what you would call it other than that, but rant. But even in the background, she doesn't stop rooting for her students to express themselves authentically. And I think that that's a huge portion of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah. I think the level of authenticity is spot on. And that goes back to kind of this, the importance of this sort of cross-generational connection and impact and influence too. and how we think about that, not only in our school environments, but in all of the environments that we kind of touch on a daily basis, right? All the places we live and work and heal and definitely learn. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's hard. When
Mm-hmm.
we, and this movie really, and I want to say haves and have nots, but it's not, and that's not the most PC way to say it, right? But one of the things when we look at cliques, right? A lot of these school movies, you have the regular cliques, you have the jocks and you have the stoners and you have
Mm-hmm.
the headbangers, at least the old ones do. Or
Mm-hmm.
you think back to like a Grease or something. This one really doesn't necessarily have cliques. In this one, it really talks more so about social dynamics and the differentiators between two, and that's wealth versus the working class,
Mm-hmm.
which would realistically be Sharpay and her brother versus almost every other
All
person
those. Mm-hmm.
from the Wildcats, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about cliques? Do
You know,
you?
you think about like how socioeconomics play a role in this, and how from that particular example with Sharpay and Ryan, there's this automatic assumption that they have access to more resources, to more benefits, to more experiences because of the wealth that they come from, which is probably not inaccurate. But I think in this particular setting, and when we think about it in real educational environments, is how do you break down kind of those socioeconomic barriers that become intimidating or paralyzers to maximize, you know, your growth and learning and own kind of personal development. And I think you see that a little bit through the lens of this movie. And it's interesting because what High School Musical 1 and 2 do is they bring everybody together through song and dance. But in reality, when they're outside of the performances that is High School Musical, they are kind of compartmentalized in their own cliques, right? There are the jocks, there are sort of the ones that are the thespian kind of drivers, right? There are the ones that are perceived to be more popular. There are the ones that are perceived to be smarter. And so I think that's something that is definitely still very predominant in today's time. I think it's probably even more amplified because of technology and social media. So
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
had High School Musical been filmed in 2025, it would be, you know, I think it would be a little bit of a different kind of framework.
Well, I wonder
But
if it would even still be, if a movie like this would still be relevant, right? And what would
yeah,
that movie look like?
yeah,
Because we'll
we'll
talk
get
about
into
that.
that. Okay, okay.
Oh, for sure, we're going to get into that. We will. So what? And I don't want to tell you who I think it is, but in this movie, is there a scene stealer? Someone who steals the show. It might not be a major role. Like High School Musical, the original one, I thought it was the piano player. I think she stole the show, right? Because and her character was so downplayed. So do you feel like any of the characters in this?
Steal the show. I mean, I think they try to tee up Sharpay to steal the show,
Ugh,
but
she's never going to steal the show.
but then it's not really Sharpay. I think it's like you're drawn to Gabriella, but Gabriella is like so quiet, but she is, I mean, she's intended to be the lead, but she's so kind of quiet and reserved in her personality that so it's like it's an expectation that you expect her to steal the show because she's already identified as the lead. I don't know if I have a show stealer for
Stop.
this
Okay,
one.
so do you want to know who mine is?
Yeah,
Ryan. Well, yeah, so he had a glow up, right? And
he
you
did.
think about like High School Musical 1 and then you think about like the beginning of this story because it's a continuation of. He really
Are
was
you
just
saying that because
Sharpay's.
he wins the award at the end?
No, I think that, in the very beginning. So first of all, the way he dressed, like he had a glow up.
Yeah.
He was more choreographed than he had been in his previous roles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's an element that comes into it where loyalty sort of arcs the shine and glamour of, him and Sharpay's connection with everything else. So I just think maybe he stole the show. I don't
I
know.
could see that. I could see that.
Zeke, maybe? I had Ryan and Zeke. Because you think about that end scene at the oh my gosh, what was it? The talent show.
The talent
And
show.
he
Mm-hmm.
tells Zach to like go out and he's gonna sing, and then all of a sudden, it wasn't Sharpay, it was Gabrielle. And that was Ryan. That
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah. That's true. That's true. Kind of made the magic happen.
I mean, a little bit.
Stole the show. I could get on board with that.
Good. I'm glad we agree.
I didn't have a good answer, so I'm gonna jump on that one with you.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know that they did. Like, if there was like a very clear, distinct one, but I mean, it definitely wasn't Sharpay.
You
I
know,
still just
I think when you
dislike her
look at
character.
like, I know it's a very over the top, but I think when you look at the premise of the first one and where they kind of arrived, and then what the focus was in the second one with really trying to establish like this cohesion, like there was this cohesion that was kind of brought to the forefront that was established during their summer break. And so when we talk about the show stealer, while I agree with you, I feel like it's a little bit difficult to identify because they really try to create kind of this like more equality. Do you see that? I mean, I feel
I
like
can
I
see
see
it.
that a little bit in the second one. Yeah.
I was just looking up the IMDb. I just figured I would pull up the cast of characters so that I can
I
remember
have them
who's
in
who.
front too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I have such a hard time with names. Why did I not realize that Miley Cyrus was in this movie?
She's a girl at the pool.
Yeah,
I
did
don't,
you
yeah.
realize that?
No, I didn't. And she's not in it for very long,
No,
but I
but
didn't
even one
realize that
pool
was
scene.
her.
Huh,
Yeah. Yeah.
who knew? Okay, so the most iconic moment. I kind of already blew this one, but what it, would you think is the most iconic moment?
Well, it's hard not for the end. I mean, it's hard for it to not be the ending. But
That's
I
true.
also think that there was sort of this self-discovery with Zac Efron with what was his actual character name?
Troy.
Troy. Yeah, that's right. That
That's why I had to pull it up. Yeah.
yeah, that he, he was kind of like losing himself, in his identity and his way a little bit. And I think him coming kind of full circle, especially at that age, right? At that age during this time, that's kind of iconic in itself. That sort of
Yep.
self-discovery.
Yeah. So I said bet on it, like the pure just drama,
Yeah.
but I did say Troy's internal struggle. I don't, that one's a hard one other than the end. But two, I do think the talent show was one as well.
I do too. I do too.
There were a couple of scenes that really, really could have been one-liners or quotes. Are there any that you can think of that I still say bet on it? There's so many of these movies that we review and we talk about, and I'm like, oh, I say things from this movie.
I don't know. High school. So one-liners or quotes. I'm trying to think about the song. So that when you think about the soundtrack to this one,
Oh. Oh, I'm
um,
terrible with music, so you're going to have to carry us through that one. Well, they had, so it was terrible with music, cars, sports, pretty much anything, pop culture. So, no, so Gabrielle's breakup ballad, right? She said, I got
her
to go
breakup
my own
ballad.
way.
I got to go my own way. Yep.
So I think
Yep.
that was what
Yep.
I had.
Yep. I was actually thinking about that. Got to go my own way. Bet on it. It's hard to get bet on it out of your head.
Yeah.
Once you have it in your head, like it's pretty sticky, right?
Yeah. Other than, I mean, I can't think of any. Wait,
But
what
what
you
was the
Google?
song that Troy and Gabriella sang with Kelsey and they were doing as a duet and then Sharpay like rewrote it and was singing it at the end? What was the lyrics to that? I've got the music in me, or you've got the music in
Oh,
you, or
crap.
outside of
That's
Fabulous.
fabulous.
Fabulous was the other one, but
Okay.
you are the music in me, right?
Okay.
You
That
are
could
the
be it.
music in me. Yeah, I don't sing, but I think that would be another one. It was so dramatic, You are the music
Oh,
in me.
in order. Hold on. All for one. Bet on it. Every day. Fabulous. Gotta go my own way. What time is it?
What time is it?
You are the music in me.
You are the
Sharpay's
music in me.
version.
Hmm.
You are the music in me.
Hmm.
That was it. Now, this didn't take place in a school setting. It was obviously summertime, but I do think that a lot of elements relate back to school and the dynamic and everything else. But is this realistic or ridiculous when it comes to the storyline of school and expectations?
It's totally ridiculous.
I
It's
mean, the
totally
singing
ridiculous.
and dancing are ridiculous.
The likelihood that you can get your entire cohort of friends to work at the same country club for the entire summer, like that's probably a ridiculous expectation set number one. I think the thing that is realistic is, if you have a summer and say a group of friends are attending the same camp or they're in the same, I mean, they're all in the, ideally, like your classmates are all in the same town, right? So you're able to hang out and do a lot of things together throughout the summer. And I think when they were like the interstitial scenes in between the musical numbers were more realistic, but the overarching kind of plot and theme of the movie was a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, it's very ridiculous if you really think about it.
So
But I
ridiculous.
do think, though, that the thing that is realistic, and you think about Troy's character and Sharpay's, in a sense, like manipulating her position in her family's
Mm-hmm.
status, in a sense. And so I think there's a pull between loyalty and ambition,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, where does that go? And I think that that's realistic. And no matter what social setting you are in, and it doesn't even have to be associated with, someone who's wealthy or someone who's not. It can be associated with popularity. It can be associated with all sorts of different things. So I do think that that was a realistic component of it, as well as the temptation of opportunity. I think
Mm-hmm.
is incredibly real for teens as
Mm-hmm.
they navigate through a world where you're just like, okay, so where do those opportunities come from? Like, and what does that look like?
Mm-hmm. And what does it mean, the difference between right and wrong? I think there were at certain times there were consequences for certain actions and there were benefits to others. And so I think there's a lot of learning that happens at that age that is a part of all of the that kind of experience, in that environment, in that particular environment. But from a cinematic standpoint, it's a pretty
It's
good balance of heavier on the ridiculous end probably than the realistic, but they did a pretty good job balancing
they
it, I feel
did.
like.
They
Yeah.
definitely did.
When we work with schools at K-12, it's not just about furniture or design, it's about impact. Our radically student-centered approach puts students at the center of every decision. From that first conversation to the final walkthrough, we're focused on creating spaces that actually work for the kids, the teachers, and the community. So if you're looking to do more than just check a box on your next project, let's talk. Visit K12.com. That's KAY TWELVE.com and see how we're helping schools transform learning one student at a time. Because at K-12, it's not just about projects and furniture, it's about purpose.
Okay, so we already talked about like what would it be, this 2007 movie recorded in 2025, right? So
Yeah.
hypothetical update to the movie. Would certain elements change if the movie were made today? And then are there going to be different social dynamics, technology, character shifts within like a more modern remake?
So I would anticipate that you have somebody who is of Sharpay's personality, who is very self-reflective and
Vain.
vain, self-interested. And I think when I think about the iPhone effect, it's almost like that character would be so rooted in her image and presence on technology as much as she was in person. The fabulous scene at the poolside, and it's very choreographed and animated and very focused on the females of their cohort. Oftentimes wonder if they would have brought in like a technology component if it was filmed in today's time that would have been integrated into that and captured kind of in another way.
Yeah.
Would they have all been in the same physical environment? Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe they would have been in different places or working at different places during the summer, and the integration of technology would have allowed them to create a different plot twist.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Zeke would definitely have a cooking show. Like maybe he would
Yeah.
be cooking on TikTok.
It's a good one.
He's so cute. And then
Yes,
obviously, right, Troy and Sharpay, maybe not their actual performances, but definitely because of the me mentality and like the need to be seen, she would definitely be trying to go viral for sure.
Agreed.
Who knows if she would or not. But
yeah,
I can't imagine like what their group text would be like. Back then, group text, heck no.
Oh, I know. What is that app that you can like sing duets with people? I feel like that would have been one. There's a social
Is it
media
Duo?
app that you sing Duo that you can like sing duets and they don't have to be recorded at the same time. They can be recorded at different times. I feel like that would have been part of the
Probably.
musical
No,
numbers.
it's not Duo. I've never heard of it, but I'm going to Google it when we're done.
Yeah, what it's called. I bet there's a couple of them now, but there's some that you can like sync up in real time to sing together, and then there's ones that you can like sing. It'll tell you like the different parts of the lyrics to sing, and then it'll mash it together when it's recorded in different times.
Well, so if it were recasted, can you think of any substitutes to any of the characters?
That weren't in the movie?
No, that you would change out. So like, would you change Sharpay for Ellie Fanning? That's what mine would be. Or
I didn't
Dove
think
Cameron.
about this one. Was I? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who was the girl that played Belle in the live action Beauty and the Beast? Emma Watson.
Yeah, Emma Watson would be a good one. For
Bring
who?
her in.
For Gabrielle?
Yeah,
Oh, I could see that.
I could see that too.
How about Caleb
The
McLaughlin for Troy?
That could be
Do you
a
know
good
who
one.
that is?
Yeah, that could be a good one.
We just remade a High School Musical 3 with all new characters because they've aged so much.
We could totally produce it.
I agree. We could pick our
$1 million
people.
idea. Yeah, yeah.
We're going to talk to him about that. Okay, so the basis of this though is like they're high school, they're moving on. So if if we were signing yearbooks, right? What did High School Musical teach us? What would your one-liner be in signing a yearbook?
Never say never.
That's a whole different musical. I will never.
Ever. Is that a musical? No, that's just a Taylor Swift song, isn't it?
No, is that not in the circus musical? Oh my gosh, what is it?
The Greatest Showman?
Yeah.
Never enough?
Yeah, isn't that it?
That's totally different. Like she's singing about never being enough. My one-liner was, if it's never say never. Like thinking when we're thinking about like, when Gabriella was thinking about breaking it off with Troy to go find herself, and Sharpay was like convinced that she was going to win the talent show again.
Oh.
And, Ryan, I think for a long time, Ryan just was content with the fact, or maybe not content, but maybe he was just at a point in his life where he's like, I'm never going to like move out of the shadows of Sharpay. So when I think about like Never Say Never, they all kind of found your own way. Well, that was one of the songs.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's the line. Never say never. Or find your own way.
Pave your own path. Like do you do.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's the whole premise of the movie, I think. Done.
I think it is too. And I do think Troy, not Troy, oh my gosh, what's his name? Sharpay's brother. Ryan, thank you, not Troy. But I do think a lot of this was Ryan coming out of the shadows of Sharpay.
Yes.
And showing that he was like, he's a different person than who he was with her. So where do you think if we were looking at the Troys, the Gabrielles, the Sharpays, where would they be now? What would they be doing?
This question I'm really bad at because I think this is almost like stereotyping.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? The thing about all of them is that, and you talked about the ambition, but they all had their own drive. They all had their own desire. Mm-hmm. They all had their own ambition and motivation. And I think all of those character traits set individuals up for great success. So, could you say, does Troy go into some sort of kind of executive profession? I don't know. That's kind of stereotyping. Does Sharpay go into some sort of, I almost see her going into like fashion design or something.
Oh, that's funny. So I had, do you want to know about
Yeah.
Totally. I'm good with stereotyping, apparently, because this is, I think, the funnest one. Because when you see people, I always think like, and I think about it with my kids too. You see people and what they do, and I'm like, what are they going to be when they get older?
Yeah.
And so if I could pick something for you, like, let me pick it for you. But like Troy, I think he'd be like a leadership speaker or something, obviously. Like he's incredibly athletic and very good at anything he does. Maybe like a sports coach of some kind, or those two kind of go together, leadership and coaching, that type of thing. Gabrielle, I think a youth mentor or something associated even with STEM and research, things like that. Sharpay would definitely be like the next whatever Bieber who just sold her makeup line. I think that she'd be like a glam expert of some kind.
Yeah. Yeah. I could totally see that.
Who are the other ones? Let me look.
And then you have like
Ryan.
Chad. We haven't really talked about Chad.
Ooh, which one is Chad? Hold on.
Chad is Troy's best friend. That they kind of had their riff. Where Troy was like figuring out who he wanted to be and couldn't. And then Chad got his feelings hurt, and rightfully so. But Chad, I think, has a softer demeanor and wasn't like he was kind of like more reserved, right? And you could tell that he was kind of a thinker, and
he was more stoic.
Yes, and didn't react right away. Like it was more of a processor. So I could see him being kind of some sort of intellect, or maybe like, you think about like professors or other business executives that are in an influential role. Could see him being in that.
What would Ryan be?
Ryan's shift towards the end and being compassionate. There was a level of compassion and care and empathy. So does he go into medicine?
He's too glamorous for medicine, like way too bougie.
But it supports that kind of bouginess.
I mean, if you need to, but it seems like they don't need.
He doesn't have to worry about
I put Broadway choreographer.
He could totally do that. I mean, that's a different kind of bougie.
Oh, it totally is. And too, like a whole different type of, not necessarily in center stage, but there is something different about being in the background and the orchestrator of something that's wildly successful and sought after. And, being able to support people in doing that, I think. Yeah. I don't know.
That's a good one too.
That's what I had. And then obviously Zeke, a celebrity chef for sure.
I agree.
He'd have a cooking show somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know. Music, though. Okay, we talked about Fabulous.
Yep.
Now, in this part of the podcast is when you have to sing one of the sections of one of these songs.
Like from the second one, because we're all in this together. I actually know the dance, the choreography to it.
You know the whole dance? You're not supposed to.
So fun fact, in my past life, I was part of a marketing company that had like national conventions. I kind of did this off on the side when I was an evolving emerging designer, and they recruited talent within. And so I had the opportunity to perform at like half a dozen national conventions with 6,000 to 10,000 people on their main stage. And one of our main final performances was to High School Musical. We're all in this together, and we learned the whole thing. It may be out there. It might be out there. So we were in like the tracksuits, like we did the full on like red tracksuits. So I know we're all in this together is not in High School Musical 2, but that was the one that comes to mind. You don't want me singing it.
Oh, let's hear it.
Let's hear. No, you don't want me singing it. No.
Well, so we talked Fabulous. The other one is Bet on It, right? That was one of the songs. I mean, and there wasn't really background music in this or anything else. It was really the music was their music that they sang.
Yep.
In the different scenes in the movie. What was the other one? Oh, I have them up. Every Day, I think maybe.
Every Day. You Are the, and then we talked about You Are the Music in Me. And the one that she sings when she breaks up with him. I gotta go my own way.
Yeah.
That was a good one. Yeah.
I mean, I honestly, when I saw High School Musical 2, it's always funny because going back, right? Like it's sometimes hard to rewatch some of these.
Yeah.
But I am a sucker for a musical. I'd love for you to share what's going on in your world. I know we kind of talked about Luminat, what you do for them, and everything else. But like, are there any current projects or themes or something that you're excited about?
Yeah. So we, as a firm, and just to kind of dive into this a little bit more. So we, I mentioned earlier, we're based in Indianapolis and Cincinnati, but we essentially work in 8 major markets, and half of those markets or practice areas, project types, are across the United States. And they represent hospitality projects, so different hotels and restaurants and jazz bars and, kind of that area of work. And then our Greek housing market is also national, and so is our senior living market. And so we, when we talk about what's happening in the educational world in a lot of different communities, there's this ongoing kind of cross-pollination of what is really important to people on how they just live overall and the amenities that are tied to that. And it's now, I think, now more than ever, really infiltrating our learning environments. Mm-hmm. And so you see a lot of different high schools, for example, that have access to wellness centers where they're not just fitness centers, but more holistic wellness, right? Mental health resources, where may I go to get certain levels of testing or be able to have a respite space. And then you see areas like cafes and coffee shops and things that are kind of outside, food services that are outside of your standard kind of K-12 food service. And then other services that are community-based services that we're seeing partner more and more with school districts. And so the reason why I bring this up is because I think from Luminat's, from our teaming standpoint, we're doing a lot of different project types right now and have for many years, and research alongside that really showcases kind of this infiltration of this kind of cross-pollination of experience. So that to say, we are super excited about the continued direction of our firm. We continue to be deeply rooted in the practice of architecture and interior design across all those different project types, but are very immersed in a variety of conferences and publications and different opportunities across the United States. So I know that's kind of like high level, but that's about, it's a little bit about what's going on with us as a firm. Me personally, in leading our educational environments, recently I've had the opportunity to be an adjunct instructor of interior design for the College of Architecture and Planning at Ball State University. And so we have had the opportunity to be more immersed with the learners at that level and really utilizing that experience to understand, what is it that they are identifying as sort of their biggest challenges, and what was it that they experienced in grade school that they may be missing in a higher education experience, and what are the things that they experienced in grade school that maybe they want to make sure that they don't experience again. And so I think it always is telling to be able to understand perspectives through the lens of the educator, and that experience has allowed me to do that. Yeah, it's been really, really great.
Yeah, but it sounds like you're juggling a lot of different hats too, right?
I think so. But that's what keeps it interesting and fresh. And I think, you have practitioners, architects that are, that are in process of writing books and going on tour, so to speak, with different conferences. And I have had the opportunity to really grow connections and relationships and thought leadership in the educational lens. And I think we're just trying to continue to expand and build that momentum.
I love that. Well, thank you again, Erin, for being part of the episode
Carla.
today. And for bringing this back to the forefront, right? So to our listeners, thank you for joining us. High School Musical 2 definitely brought back some memories, maybe some moves as I was, watching it throughout this week. And we'd love to hear y'all's take. So head over to thebetterlearningpodcast.com and connect to the podcast. And until next time, don't forget, you got to go your own way.
Love it. Thank you so much, Carla. Thanks, everybody.
The Better Learning Podcast is produced by Matt Rogers and edited by Kelly Jones. The views and opinions shared on this podcast are those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily represent the perspectives of their affiliated companies, organizations, or associations.